The afternoon sun hung high over Umuokoro village, spreading its soft golden light on the dusty red streets. Children chased one another around the wooden kiosks. Mothers bargained loudly with traders, and the thick smell of ripe tomatoes mixed with the sharp scent of fresh pepper. Every corner of the village market was alive, except for one narrow path where an old woman struggled alone. Her name was Mama Sandra, a well-known vegetable seller in the village. Everyone admired her strength. She was in her late 60s, small in stature, with deep lines on her face carved by years of hard work. Her wrapper was faded from many washings, and her head tie looked as tired as her body. Still, every day she rose before dawn, arranged her tomatoes and onions neatly on her wooden table, and sold with a warm smile. She was the kind of woman who never complained, even when her back ached or when the weather was harsh. But today was different. The market had been extra stressful. Her husband, Pa William, had asked her to help him on the farm early in the morning, and they had worked for hours under the sun, cutting firewood for the weekend sales. By the time she returned to the market, her legs were shaking with fatigue. Now, with a large bundle of firewood balanced on her back, she struggled to walk home. Her feet dragged slowly along the dusty path. Sweat poured down her face, soaking her old blouse. She took 2 steps, stopped to breathe, then took 2 steps again. Her house was still far, and her vision blurred slightly. Just then, a small voice called out behind her, "Mama Sandra, please wait." She turned around, surprised. Running toward her was a skinny little girl wearing a faded school uniform, Amara. Amara was only 11 years old, small for her age, with bright eyes that carried both sadness and determination. Her uniform was neatly washed, but the white collar had long turned pale from use. Her sandals were worn out, and she carried a school bag that was almost empty, not because she did not want books, but because she could not afford them. Yet, despite her struggles, Amara was one of the brightest children in Umuokoro Primary School. The teachers always praised her dedication. She read every note 3 times, wrote every assignment carefully, and listened with focus even when her stomach growled from hunger. Her classmates from wealthy families brought laptops and expensive textbooks to class, but many of them slept through lessons or spent the day playing. Amara only had a few old notebooks, but she guarded them with her whole heart. "Mama, give me the firewood. Let me help you carry it," Amara said gently. The old woman blinked, confused. "My daughter, no. It is too heavy. You are just a child." "But you are tired," Amara replied softly. "Let me help you, please." Something warm moved in the old woman's chest. No one had said those words to her in a long time. With a grateful sigh, she slowly lowered the firewood from her back. Amara bent down, wrapped her small arms around the heavy bundle, and lifted it onto her head. The weight made her legs tremble a little, but she balanced it carefully. "Mama, let's go slowly," she said. And so they walked. Step by step, Amara carried the firewood through the village, past shops, past farms, past children playing football. People looked at her with surprise. Some whispered, some nodded in admiration, but Amara did not mind. She walked quietly, her small figure almost disappearing behind the large load. Behind her, the old woman followed, shaking her head in amazement. "You are a strange child," she murmured, "a very good one." When they finally reached Mama Sandra's small compound, a tiny mud house with a wooden shed, Amara gently lowered the firewood to the ground. The moment she did, her arms felt numb, but she smiled anyway. "Mama, you should rest," she said politely. Mama Sandra sat on an old wooden stool, breathing deeply. She watched the girl with eyes full of emotion. Then she called her closer. "Come here, my daughter." Amara stepped forward. The old woman held her hands and said in a slow, trembling voice, "You shall succeed in life. You will never lack a helper. Wherever you go, goodness will follow you." The words entered Amara's heart like warm light. "You have a pure spirit," the old woman continued. "Life is full of challenges, but you must not give up. Your mother, may her soul rest in peace, would be proud of you." At the mention of her mother, Amara's eyes filled instantly with tears. She remembered the soft hands that used to wipe her face, the gentle voice that sang to her at night, the warm arms that held her when she was afraid. Her mother was gone, taken away by sickness and poverty. Since then, Amara had been living in a small wooden shack near the village square, surviving each day with little help. I miss her, Mama, she whispered. Mama Sandra pulled her into a warm hug. Cry if you must, my child. Tears do not make you weak. And Amara cried, quietly, deeply, her face buried in the old woman's shoulder. After some minutes, she wiped her face and smiled gratefully. Thank you, Mama. Thank you for your words. The old woman patted her cheek affectionately. Go home now, my daughter, and remember, never stop reading, never stop trying, and never stop believing. I won't, Amara said. She picked up her old school bag, waved, and began the long walk back. As she disappeared down the road, Mama Sandra looked up at the sky with a thoughtful expression. There is greatness in that child, she murmured. I can feel it. And indeed, that moment, one simple act of kindness, would later become the turning point in Amara's life. A seed had been planted, and destiny itself had already begun to move. The promise that followed Amara. For the next few days, Amara walked around with a different kind of strength in her heart. No one could see it, but she felt it. It was as if Mama Sandra's words, the blessing spoken softly under that old wooden shed, followed her everywhere she went. Each time she remembered the old woman's voice saying, "You shall succeed," a warm courage filled her chest. But courage was not enough to change her situation. Amara's life remained hard. Her small wooden shack near the village square still leaked whenever it rained. Her uniform was still the same faded one she had worn for 2 years. She still ate only once a day, mostly Gary-soaked in cold water, and she still had no one to help her pay her school fees on time. Yet she woke up every morning, tied her worn-out sandals, brushed her hair neatly, and walked proudly to school. Unlike her classmates, she had no luxury. She did not have a laptop. She did not own fancy textbooks. She did not have a school bag full of new pens, but she had something they did not: hunger to succeed. When the teacher walked into Primary 5 class that morning, everyone greeted loudly. "Good morning, sir." "Good morning, class," Mr. Okeke replied. He was a tall man with a calm voice that carried authority. He walked to the blackboard, wrote mathematics, and turned to the students. "I marked your assignments yesterday. Some of you did well, but one person did exceptionally well." Students whispered among themselves. "Who is it?" "It must be Chiamaka. She has the newest textbooks." "No, I think it's David. His father bought him a laptop." But Mr. Okeke simply smiled and turned to the back of the classroom. "Amara, stand up." The classroom went silent. All eyes shifted to the tiny girl sitting alone at the last bench. Amara stood slowly, her heart beating fast. Her uniform looked out of place among her classmates' neat clothes. Some of the rich children exchanged surprised glances. A few frowned. "She?" one boy murmured. "With that old bag?" But Mr. Okeke ignored their whispers. "Class," he said, "Amara has the highest score not only in this assignment, but in the entire class this term. She is dedicated, disciplined, and hungry for knowledge. Many of you have every tool you need, but do not use them. Learn from her." Amara lowered her head, shy but grateful. A tiny smile touched her lips. Later that day, during break, Amara sat under the mango tree behind the school field. She opened her old notebooks and revised her classwork, writing carefully so she would not waste pages. As she studied, some of her classmates walked past her and stared. "She is too serious," one girl said. "She thinks she is better than us," another added. "No," a boy corrected, "she is better." But Amara did not respond. She just kept reading. She knew where she came from. She knew how much she lacked. So she did not allow distractions. Hours later, when school ended, Amara walked home with her small strides. As she reached the market area, she saw Mama Sandra sitting in front of her tomato stall. The old woman looked tired but cheerful. "Mama," Amara called out happily. The old woman raised her head and smiled. "My daughter, how was school today?" "It was fine, Mama. My teacher praised me." "Ah," Mama Sandra exclaimed. "I knew it. That blessing I gave you will open doors you cannot imagine." Amara shyly laughed. "I hope so." "Come," the old woman said, waving her closer. "Sit with me." Amara sat on a wooden stool beside her and helped arrange the tomatoes and peppers neatly. As she worked, Mama Sandra watched her with admiration. "You have a spirit of greatness," she said softly. "I have lived long enough to recognize a child who will rise above challenges. Your heart is different." Amara swallowed, touched by her words. "You remind me of myself when I was young," the old woman continued. "Life was hard, But I kept moving. You must do the same. I will, Mama, Amara whispered. Just then, a customer approached, and they both attended to her. The sun slowly dipped behind the tall palm trees as the day drew closer to evening. When business became quiet again, Amara prepared to leave. Mama, let me go and read before night comes. Go well, my daughter, and do not forget, if life becomes too heavy, come to me. My door is always open. Amara nodded and walked away, hugging her school bag like a treasure. The next term came with more challenges. School fees were due, and Amara had no idea how to get the money. The headmistress had already warned her that she would not be allowed into the examination hall if she did not complete her payment. For the first time, fear entered her heart. What will I do? She whispered to herself. That evening, after school, she walked straight to Mama Sandra's house. She found the old woman returning from the farm with another bundle of firewood on her head. Mama, let me help you. Amara rushed forward. Once again, she collected the heavy load and carried it inside. When she dropped it, she breathed hard. The old woman noticed the stress in her eyes. My daughter, something is worrying you. Tell me. Amara hesitated, then slowly explained. Mama, my school fees are not complete, and exams are in 2 weeks. I don't want to stop school. She blinked back tears. The old woman sighed heavily and sat down on a stool. My daughter, things are hard everywhere, she said, voice filled with pain. Even me, I do not have enough to feed properly. My husband is old and weak. The farm is not doing well this season. Amara nodded, pretending not to be disappointed. I understand, Mama. But the old woman gently lifted Amara's chin. But listen to me. You will not fail. Somehow, some way, help will come. How do you know? Amara asked softly. The old woman smiled. I spoke a blessing over your life, and blessings do not fail. Amara held on to those words like treasure. She returned home, lit her tiny lantern, and studied long into the night, determined not to give up. Little did she know that her destiny was already turning, and the blessing spoken in that small compound would soon shake her entire future. The next days were filled with quiet worry for Amara. Every morning, she woke before sunrise, swept the small compound around her shack, washed her uniform, and prepared for school. But as she walked the road each day, her steps grew slower. The weight of unpaid school fees pressed on her heart. Her classmates talked excitedly about the coming exams. I will score highest this term, one girl boasted. My father hired a private tutor, another added proudly. Some even discussed new laptops their parents promised them if they performed well. But Amara stayed silent. She had no private tutor, no laptop, no new textbooks. Her only weapons were her worn notebooks and her quiet determination. One afternoon, the headmistress entered the classroom holding a long list. Students, she announced, these are the names of those who still owe school fees. If your name is here and you do not pay before next week, you will not write the exam. Silence fell across the classroom. She began to read the names one by one. When she said Amara Kalechi, Amara closed her eyes tightly. She had hoped a miracle would happen before the list came out. But miracles do not always come early. After school, she walked slowly to Mama Sandra's stall. The old woman was packing up the leftover tomatoes for the day. My daughter, she said softly, your face looks like the world is sitting on your shoulders. What is it? Amara sat down quietly. They read the names today. The names of students who have not paid school fees. My name was first. Mama Sandra sighed. I am sorry, my child. I wish I had enough to help you. You have already helped me more than you know, Amara whispered. Your words alone give me strength. The old woman took her hand gently. That strength will lead you to great places. But Amara's heart still hurt. She returned home that evening, lit her small lantern, and stared at her notebooks. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I don't want to stop school, she whispered into the empty room. I don't want my life to end here. That night, she cried until sleep carried her away. The next morning, something strange happened. When Amara entered the school compound, she saw a large group of teachers standing near the assembly ground. They looked excited, whispering and pointing toward the headmistress's office. She approached slowly. What is happening? She asked a classmate. There is a visitor, the girl whispered, a very important visitor from the state capital. Amara's heart skipped a beat. Important visitors rarely came to their small school. Within minutes, the headmistress came out, clapping her hands. "Students, gather around." The entire school rushed to the front. A tall man in a neat suit stepped forward. His face was bright and dignified. He carried a brown leather folder in his hand. "Good morning, children," he greeted. "Good morning, sir," the students echoed. "I am here on behalf of the State Educational Board," he began. "We recently reviewed the academic performance of primary schools across the region. A remarkable case came up from this school." The students looked around, confused. The man opened his folder and pulled out a sheet of paper. "There is a young girl in primary 5 who has shown uncommon brilliance despite having almost no learning materials. Her assignments, tests, and examination scripts stood out among thousands." Murmurs spread across the crowd. The man turned to the teachers. "Her teachers speak highly of her. Her handwriting is exceptional. Her comprehension skills are outstanding, and her discipline is inspiring." Amara's heart raced. Then the man asked calmly, "Where is Amara Kalechi?" Gasps filled the air. Amara froze. Two teachers looked around until one pointed toward her. "There she is, sir." Slowly, Amara walked to the front, feeling all eyes on her. Some students stared in shock. Some smiled. A few looked jealous. The tall man smiled warmly when she reached him. "Amara, you are a gift," he said gently. "Your dedication has reached the state capital." Her eyes widened. "Me, sir?" "Yes, you." The headmistress wiped her eyes proudly. The man lifted a sealed document. "By the order of the State Educational Board, you have been awarded a full scholarship, from this moment until the end of your university education." The entire school exploded into noise. "Ah, she got a scholarship. Amara? The girl with old sandals?" But Amara stood frozen, her mind struggling to understand what she just heard. A scholarship, all her education paid for, no more fear of school fees, no more walking with shame, no more begging for help. Her small body trembled, then tears rushed down her face like rain. The tall man placed his hand on her shoulder. "You will be a great woman someday," he said. "Never forget where you came from, and never stop working hard." Students clapped loudly. Teachers beamed with pride. Even the headmistress could not hide her joy. But there was someone else in the crowd whose eyes were filled with more emotion than anyone else. Mama Sandra. She had arrived at the school early that morning to sell firewood near the gate. When she heard the commotion, she came closer, only to discover that the child she had blessed, the one who helped her carry firewood, was the reason the school was celebrating. As the crowd cheered, she pressed her hand to her chest, overwhelmed. "That blessing. It has begun," she whispered. When the assembly ended and students returned to class, Amara ran straight into her warm arms. "Mama, Mama, I got a scholarship," she cried. The old woman hugged her tightly. "I knew it," she whispered. "I knew God had written greatness for you." Amara sobbed in her arms. "You will go far, my daughter," the old woman continued, smiling through her own tears. "One day, the whole world will know your name." Nobody knew how true those words would become, for the seed of kindness, lifting firewood for a tired old woman, was now beginning to blossom. But this was only the beginning of Amara's journey. Greater doors were waiting, greater challenges too. And destiny was preparing to surprise her in ways she could never imagine. Life changed for Amara the moment she received the scholarship, but it did not become easy overnight. A scholarship could pay her school fees, textbooks, and uniforms, but it could not remove the hardships she faced at home. It could not fix the loneliness of growing up without parents. It could not erase the hunger she sometimes felt when she had no food. Still, a bright new light had entered her life. Hope. From that day onward, Amara studied with a different kind of fire. She still sat at the back of the classroom, still wore her old sandals, and still carried her faded school bag. But her notebooks became the most valuable items she owned. She treated each lesson like a treasure and every exam like a golden opportunity. Months passed, and she moved from primary 5 to primary 6. When she finally completed her primary school education, she was the best graduating pupil. The villagers gathered under the mango trees in front of the school to celebrate her. Parents who once looked down on her now whispered, "That girl is destined for greatness. She is a star. She has a sharp brain." Amara just smiled shyly and returned home to her small wooden shack. She knew she had a long journey ahead. Her scholarship continued into secondary school. She attended one of the best public schools in the region. Many of her new classmates arrived in cars, wore expensive shoes, and carried modern bags. Some had imported textbooks, others had snacks and drinks every break time. Amara walked to school each morning on worn sandals, carrying the same faded bag she had been using for years. Still, she held her head high. On her first day in JSS 1, her new teacher, Mrs. Olatunji, gave the class a comprehension test. "Let me see what I am working with," the teacher said. Most students complained. In the first week, "This teacher is wicked. I am not ready." But Amara picked up her pen confidently and answered every question with calm and careful handwriting. The next day, the teacher stood at the front of the class with the marked scripts in her hand. "Class, I am impressed with one person," she said. Students whispered excitedly. "The highest score is 18 out of 20. The student is Amara Kalechi." The class erupted in shock. "That girl again. But look at her shoes. She must read all night." But Amara remained humble. She simply thanked the teacher and went back to her seat. Her brilliance continued throughout junior school. She topped the class every term. She participated in debates, spelling competitions, and science quizzes, and she always stood out. However, success came with its own challenges. Some students admired her, others envied her. A few even avoided her because they believed she was too serious. There were days when she ate nothing until evening, nights when she studied by the dim light of a lantern because she had no electricity, days when her uniform tore a little and she stitched it carefully so no one would notice. Through it all, one person remained a steady pillar in her life, Mama Sandra. Every weekend, Amara visited the old woman. If the woman was coming from the farm, Amara helped carry the firewood. If she was returning from the market, Amara arranged her tomatoes and peppers neatly. Sometimes they sat together under the wooden shed, talking softly. "My daughter," the old woman would say, "the road of destiny is long. Do not fear the mountains, climb them." And Amara would smile, encouraged. When Amara reached SS1, she developed a strong dream, to become a medical doctor. She wanted to save lives, especially because she had not been able to save her own mother. "I will build a hospital one day," she whispered to herself, "a place where no child will lose their mother because they cannot afford treatment." But dreams demanded sacrifices. Her science subjects, biology, chemistry, physics, were difficult. Some lessons scared her, some formulas confused her, some books were too expensive. Could a poor girl like her survive in such a demanding field? One afternoon, she sat alone behind the school laboratory, staring at a chemistry textbook. Tears filled her eyes. "It is too hard," she whispered. "Maybe I am not smart enough for this." Just then, someone touched her shoulder gently. "My daughter," a familiar voice said. Amara looked up and saw Mama Sandra, standing with a warm smile. "Mama, what are you doing at the school?" "I came to sell vegetables near the gate," the old woman replied. "Then I asked one teacher where you were. I felt you needed me." Amara wiped her tears. "You are afraid," the old woman said softly. Amara nodded. "It is okay to be afraid, but do not let fear stop you." "I want to be a doctor," Amara whispered, "but the work is too much." The old woman lifted Amara's chin gently. "In this life, the sweetest fruit grows at the top of the tallest tree. Only those who climb, no matter how painful, will taste it. And you, Amara, you were born to climb." Amara's heart softened. "Mama, what if I fail?" The woman smiled. "Then you stand up and try again. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the journey." Those words poured strength back into Amara's bones. She hugged the old woman tightly. "Thank you, Mama. I needed this." From that day onward, Amara attacked her studies with new determination. She stayed after school hours to revise. She borrowed textbooks from teachers. She watched educational programs whenever she found electricity. She solved hundreds of past questions, and slowly she transformed. Her grades soared, teachers admired her, students respected her dedication. When she took the senior WAEC, her result was one of the best in the entire region. A letter arrived days later. "Congratulations, you have been awarded a federal scholarship to study medicine at the University of Nigeria." Amara dropped the letter and burst into tears. She ran to Mama Sandra's house, waving the paper excitedly. "Mama, I got it. I got admission to study medicine." The old woman placed both hands on her head in astonishment. My daughter, she exclaimed. Did I not say it? Did I not tell you blessings do not fail? They hugged tightly, both crying and laughing. Amara's journey was taking her far from the village. University awaited her. A new world, new challenges, new tests, and new victories. But neither she nor the old woman knew that this path would one day lead her to unimaginable heights, even to becoming a billionaire. What waited ahead would change everything. University life opened a new chapter for Amara, but it was not the perfect, smooth journey she once imagined. Even though her scholarship covered school fees and accommodation, she still faced the weight of her humble background every single day. Her classmates came to lectures carrying the newest tablets, expensive medical dictionaries, and laptops worth hundreds of thousands. They dressed in designer clothes and moved around in cars driven by family drivers. Some of them entered the classroom with snacks from the cafeteria while discussing trips abroad. Amara quietly entered her lectures with her old school bag, 2 second-hand textbooks, and a phone that barely held charge. But she carried something more powerful than all their wealth: purpose. She wanted to heal, she wanted to save, she wanted to build a hospital where no mother would die because of poverty, and each day that purpose pushed her forward. In her first year, the studies became heavy like mountains. Anatomy demanded hours. Physiology drained her energy. Biochemistry left her dizzy from long nights. Sometimes she cried alone in her room, overwhelmed by the pressure. Sometimes she skipped meals to buy photocopies of lecture notes, but she refused to give up. During one difficult semester, she remembered Mama Sandra's words: "The sweetest fruit grows at the top of the tallest tree." So she kept climbing. At the end of her first year, her results were one of the best in the entire medical faculty. Her lecturers noticed her unusual dedication and discipline. One even recommended her for a special academic award sponsored by a foundation. As the years passed, Amara matured. She became more confident, more focused, and more skilled. She joined medical outreaches in rural communities. She assisted senior doctors during practicals. She volunteered at the school clinic every weekend. She became loved and respected. But while she grew academically, she never stopped thinking about the old woman who once gave her strength. Every holiday, she returned home to Umuokoro village. The villagers always welcomed her warmly. "Dr. Amara is back. Our star child has returned. She will make this village proud." And she always went straight to Mama Sandra's house. The old woman was getting weaker with age. Her hands shook more. She could no longer walk long distances, but her eyes still carried that strong fire. "My daughter," she always said, "you are becoming everything I prayed for." Amara would sit with her for hours, telling her stories of university life while helping her sort vegetables or prepare firewood. "Mama," she would say, "when I graduate, you will never carry firewood again." The old woman always smiled and replied, "My daughter, even if I never see that day, I know it will come." 7 years after beginning her journey, Amara became a fully qualified medical doctor. The day she collected her certificate, she cried tears of joy. She held the paper close to her chest and whispered, "Thank you. And thank you, Mama." A year later, she was accepted into a residency program in Lagos. Her career rose quickly because of her skill, compassion, and unusual dedication. By her 5th year as a doctor, she had saved enough money to begin a dream she had carried since childhood: building her own private hospital. She gathered every kobo she had saved, wrote proposals, applied for grants, and searched for investors. Most rejected her at first. "You are too young. You don't have enough capital. You don't have family support." But she refused to give up. Her kindness, her reputation, and her brilliance attracted attention. Soon, a health foundation agreed to partner with her. A second investor joined, then a third. Within months, her dream became real enough to break ground. A year and a half later, a tall, shining building stood in Lagos, the Amara Kalechi Medical Center, a place of hope. Opening day was like a dream. Journalists arrived. Television stations covered the event. Government officials and health leaders attended. Her former classmates came in shock. "That poor girl who wore old sandals. The one from the village. She owns a hospital." Impossible. But it was very possible. Her hospital became one of the best in the region: clean, modern, affordable, and welcoming. Her services attracted both the poor and the wealthy. She offered free treatment days for widows and children. She created a medical scholarship for orphans. Her name became known across the country. Within a few years, the hospital expanded into branches. Money flowed, success followed, and her influence grew. Before she turned 35, she became officially recognized as one of the youngest medical billionaires in Nigeria. Her story spread everywhere. A poor homeless girl becomes a billionaire after helping an old market woman. From firewood to fortune, how kindness changed a girl's life. People spoke her name with admiration, students wrote essays about her, newspapers printed her story. Mothers told their daughters, "Be like Amara, let kindness guide you." But Amara never forgot the most important person in her life. The day she returned to Umuokoro to see Mama Sandra, she came in a black SUV. Villagers ran out to greet her, shouting with excitement. When she reached the old woman's house, she found Mama Sandra sitting outside on her stool, weaker than ever but still smiling. "My daughter," she whispered as Amara knelt before her, "I told you that blessings do not fail." Amara took her hands gently, tears flowing. "Mama, everything I am is because of you. You spoke life into me. You showed me kindness. You believed in me when I had nothing." The old woman laughed softly. "No, my child. You believed in yourself. I only watered the seed." Amara hugged her tightly. "I came to take you with me," she said. "You will live in comfort now. No more firewood. No more stress. You are my mother." Large tears rolled down the old woman's cheeks. "My daughter," she whispered, "I am proud of you." From that day onward, Mama Sandra lived in a beautiful house built beside Amara's mansion in Lagos. She wore new clothes, ate well, rested well, and enjoyed peace for the rest of her life. Amara visited her every morning before going to the hospital, and every time they sat together, the old woman told the same story with pride. "One afternoon, I came home tired with firewood, and a little girl lifted it for me. That single moment gave me a daughter and built an empire." Kindness had returned home with greatness, and the world would never forget the girl who had once been homeless, but became a billionaire because she chose to help an old market woman. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you like the story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.